Hey everyone, and welcome to YFNA News. I'm your host and moderator, Ethan Micheal. And tonight we are going to be talking about Donald Trump. And we do have a great duo lined up. We have a Republican opposed to Donald Trump and a blue dog Democrat in favor of Donald Trump. Kind of weird, not expecting that. But without further ado, I would like to bring on our speakers. We have Justin Craig and Richard Graves. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Good evening, thank you. I feel like we did this last week. We had more people, and there was just so much that didn't get covered. But I feel like we're going to get to cover that here today between the two of you. What I am going to be doing, I will be intervening as least as possible. If it gets heated, I will be inserting humor to lighten the mood.
Some levity.
Passion is allowed. Insults will not be tolerated. Insults to anyone will result in an instant drop. As I said last week, for example, let's say someone cannot just say Donald Trump is racist. They would have to say, I think Donald Trump is racist because, and provide an example. So what we want to do is avoid attacks and provide information to the audience and keep the dialogue respectful and enjoyable. So in a minute or less, Richard Graves, just if you could tell the audience about yourself.
Hi, well, I'm Richard Graves, co-host of the show, The 13% with Cynthia McDonald. I am, by academic discipline, a historian and a theologian. I attend Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary for my master's degree in religion and biblical studies. Have a history degree from Southern New Hampshire University. We've done coursework at the University of Illinois at Chicago and at Memphis State University. And I am by occupation, I work in law enforcement. And that's it. And I'm a PhD candidate for public policy at Liberty University for the Jesse Helms School of Government.
Awesome. Thank you. Justin.
Yeah, my name is Justin. I go by Justin Craig. I have a podcast that's actually music oriented called The Band Buzz. By day, I'm an audiovisual design engineer. I've actually worked in DC a number of years for defense contractors and military installations. I've, like I said, I worked in DC. I lived in Annapolis, then played music and lived in the Austin, Texas area, and then moved to Chicago where I became a part of the gaming industry. For about 8 years. Yeah. So I was the entertainment director and audiovisual supervisor for the Penn National Gaming facilities throughout the Midwest. And so, yep, that's my background. And, politics is just something that I've tracked and followed most of my life. And as a personality in many ways, lots of interactions with different folks.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. So what I have here is a coin. It's double-sided. Now, since technically this is Richard's home territory because he does host a show here, I am going to let Justin call it in the air. And this is what we're going to determine for who gives their reason first.
All right.
So, Justin, in the air.
Heads.
Heads. It is tails. Richard, would you like to go first or would you like Justin to go first?
Well, Justin is the guest, so he can go first.
All right, Justin, your first reason why you are in support of Donald Trump.
Well, we covered some of this in the last show, so I certainly don't want to belabor certain things that we've crossed. But even though those unfolded a lot of topics for us to discuss, but one of the main things, honestly, in this election, it's come down to choice for me. Dog Democrat, I've followed the Democratic Party most of my life, and in this particular instance, I was excited for the Democratic Party to roll out something different, something that they promote, widely as with diversity. And the Democrat had several options to present to us and came up with, the same old thing, and it represents, to me, the Democrat is just void. To my next point is the Democrat really party platform is kind of void of a platform. It's mostly anti-Trump rhetoric that I see. And I feel like the Democratic Party has cried wolf since day one, since Trump has gotten elected. And I didn't vote for Trump the first time. I didn't vote for Hillary at all. I stayed home only because I couldn't bring myself to pull the lever for either. That's a tough one to say 3 times fast. Lever for either. But the issue became with me is, day one, I'm actually before day one, before the guy swore in, they were already talking about, how he is going to wreck the economy, put us in war, do all of these things. And here we are 4 years later, several impeachment trials, an impeachment trial, but several attacks against different things against the presidency that have all come away fruitless, in my opinion. So, I sort of look at it as like, now I'm left with the choice between Biden and Trump. And Trump really didn't have a bad presidency. I think that the media spin on what has been that terrible about the president. If we're counting sort of the misfires by the media that seem to get swept under the rug, I'm calling it, Trump has come away a little bit more unscathed than the media would like to make it look.
All right. And then just before we go to Richard, I just want to let you both know, you don't interrupt each other, but if you need to ask clarifying questions, obviously feel free to do that. Richard, the floor is yours. At this point, I'm going to let you guys both engage back and forth, and I'll only interject as needed.
Okay, thank you. One, I want to make clarification since I was reading on my little card. The additional coursework I did was at University of Illinois, Chicago. I was reading quickly. One of my professors had been at Memphis State, and that's how I threw Memphis State in there. So I don't want the Memphis State people like, we don't know this guy. All right, so let me put it clear. Well, especially Ethan, we had a lot of people watching. So, and this is for posterity. A lot of people were watching our shows. So I want to be very clear with what I say. That being said, well, I've been a Republican since 1988. Okay, first presidential election I got to vote for President George Bush. Second presidential election I voted for President George Bush, but Bill Clinton won. I did vote for Clinton the second time because I wasn't a fan of Bob Dole. And what was after Clinton? Bush Jr., who I definitely voted for. And then when we get to Obama, I voted for Obama because what Trump represents to me, the problem I have is the divisiveness that he has brought to this country and his style of marketing and his style of presenting his ideas. And I don't blame him entirely for that. I just think he's an opportunist. He saw a good opportunity. One of the things that started to disturb me about the GOP, even though I remained a member of the party, was when Obama was running and with Sarah Palin as his running mate, they kind of set up this whole the real America. They divided America between the real America and the not real America. To me, that's a very dangerous ideology to start. So this begins with them, at least as far it's been going on since after the Civil Rights Movement. But when you get to Sarah Palin and the real America, when she was going through rural America, talking
Clarify
about
who they're calling real America.
They're calling rural America, the so-called flyover states, the real America. What's not a real America is cities like Chicago, New York, Baltimore, D.C., Los Angeles, wherever there's gays, blacks, Latinos, anything that doesn't line up with what they would consider the real America is. The values the values of the evangelical right, for example.
Do you think they're calling that? Can I ask another question quick? Do you think
Sure.
they're calling out the populace of those areas and how small America tends to be forgotten when it comes to large issues? Or do you think that they're calling out the specific folks who, like, whether it's divisiveness of color or whatever of those areas? I mean, you're calling it out as if there's like this divisiveness in people, but I think it's more like ideologies that come out of those areas. Chicago, New York, LA. If we let those parts of the country run the country, we would be this would be a madhouse.
Well, I understand that's what they like to project. All right. Let me say this much. What I mean by that is, at that point, it was a Tea Party as it was formulating before it called itself the Tea Party. All right. This was, in my opinion, whenever I have different ideologies than a lot of people. All right. I don't agree with the left on a lot of things. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. All right. However, I get a little concerned when we start referring to other Americans as not the real America. I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you're a neo-Nazi or if you're in a Black Panther Party and everything in between. Once we start referring to other people as not being part, we are Americans who disagree. That I can go with. But once you set up a dichotomy of a real America versus a false America, for whatever reason that you're doing it, you're creating some divisiveness. You're saying that part of America isn't real. They're not really Americans. That should be unacceptable to any American, regardless of what your ideology is, because we have the right to have whatever ideology we want to have. We have a right of freedom of speech. We have a right to be gay artists. We have a right to be a guy hunting down in South Carolina. We're all supposed to be Americans together. Now, the only time we seem to be Americans together is when someone blows something up over here. We go to war, and we can actually, at that point, say we're all Americans. But what I'm saying is, once you have that type of phraseology being utilized, I think that sets a dangerous precedent. It sets up a dangerous scenario.
You're calling out like a slogan, and then you're backing into what you think it means. Like,
Well, what do you think it means? Tell me. If someone says to you,
I think they were calling out the heartland of America that seems to be forgotten sometimes when it comes to elections.
then why did they just say that?
Because they're not corporate money, and that has nothing to do with
Well, so
color.
why not just say that?
Well, you know,
why call that? Why call the heartland of America the real America? All right, and regardless of what you feel about the East Coast or the Midwest or the West Coast, regardless of what you feel about it, the majority of the American population is on the dang Eastern Seaboard. So you can't call the heartland of America the real America as if the places with the majority of the population of the country are not. What are you saying when you say that?
I looked at it as a marketing thing to call to reach out to those folks to let them know that they're not being forgotten and that they're calling out to the Iowans and the farmers and the people no matter where they are, because I think that in large part those people feel like, and that's what we saw in the 2016 election with Donald Trump, is you have a large group of America. And it has nothing to do with color, I don't think, or any other devices, except that these are people who feel like in major elections, again, if the celebrities and the rock stars of the world are out there, touting for it as certain ideology, these people's voices are largely unheard. This is how you get CNN saying that the whole election is going to go this way, and then the other way, because in our system, those people have a voice. And in those campaigns, it's just my opinion, and you have your opinion, but it's my opinion that those kinds of slogans, they're calling out to those folks to say that we care about you. We feel like the heartland of America. That's like what they're not saying that people aren't real Americans and other people aren't. I didn't see it that way. And again, maybe you saw it that way, but they saw like the real America. Yeah, like the heartland of America. You know what I mean? Like that's what they're to me, that's what they were calling out to. So, well, I mean,
I would think that being statesmen is what they're supposed to be. I don't think setting up that type of dichotomy is a good thing. All right. I understand what you're saying. I understand how those people feel. Don't get me wrong. I understand how a significant portion of America feels like they're unheard, specifically unheard by the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party has a different politic that aims itself for identity politics, and that does miss a lot of people. And I understand that. But what I'm saying is when you start using that type of phraseology, you set up a dichotomy that becomes dangerous. And it becomes, instead of a unifying principle, instead of saying, I'm speaking to real Americans, regardless of where you're at. If you're on a farm in Iowa, or if you're on a block in the boogie down Bronx, I'm talking to you. That's unifying. Talking to the heartland of America and setting up a dichotomy against urban America creates a problem. And it's looking at the historical backdrop of our country, we know what that problem usually reflects. It reflects one of racism. It reflects one of against so-called liberal ideas of allowing gay people to be gay or get married. I mean, because let's be real, there are some, to the group they were talking to in the Republican Party, there are some unifying principles that they believed in at that time. They believed that gays should not be able to get married. They believed in trying to ban abortion. Some of the things I would agree with. I'm not an abortion proponent. However, as far minority people and transgender people live their lives. I think that's a conservative principle, is that live and let live. I shouldn't be policing your bedroom. However, because of the evangelical base in the Republican Party, they were so you're speaking to your bases. All right. So if you're speaking to the base and you're saying you're the real America and that this part of America isn't, you set up a dichotomy. Now, here's what I'm saying. So I understand how you felt about it. You might have felt, well,
but I think part of that is they're also calling out like the corporate America that seemed to be running politics and stuff at the time, and still is. You know what I mean? So I you know, if there we can dissect what real America means, but let's get to the heart of like some of these things are. Honestly, we live in the Karl Rove strategic political climate, you know, of the way politics is marketed to people. And not all of these slogans are so rooted, you know what I mean? Some of them are just bad slogans, or some of them are just bad, like, you know, they come up with a thing like "Make America Great Again," blah blah blah. That I don't think that they're really whistling to anybody. I think they both sides are certainly engulfed in igniting their base for them. But I think, but you're also talking about they're just coming up with, they're just trying to market. They're trying to market something that's like, hey, and then everyone's left to dissect what maybe they mean by that. And you know, your interpretation and my interpretation, we could just keep going around and around in this.
I think that you're being a little too generous. All right.
I think you're being a little too harsh.
There's a lot. You talked about corporate. There's millions of dollars being spent here, my friend. And these people who they're hiring to come up with these phrases, this is not somebody in their bedroom. Hey, I got a good phrase for us to use. These are people that are calculating, and they know exactly what they're doing. They're not.
I disagree.
Ignorant.
I think
they're not ignorant what they're doing.
Let him finish, Justin.
Yeah. Campaigning is marketing, as you say. And marketing, when you spend millions of dollars marketing something, you know exactly what you're doing. I don't care if you're marketing Coca-Cola, if you're marketing burgers. They know exactly, people know exactly what they're doing, who their demographic is. There's a bunch of research and statistical analysis that goes in how people respond to certain colors, how people respond to certain music, how people respond to certain words, how they respond to how those words look, imagery. This is how marketing works. This is how, so these people are paid very much money, and they've gone to some of the best universities in our country to learn exactly how to manipulate the social psychology of people. This is a fact. That's not opinion.
No,
I'll get paid large sums of money. So I'm saying, when you do that, all right, and none of these people are stupid. They understand the history of this country. They understand exactly who they're talking to. So if you put this in context, again, as a historian, I always put things in historical context. If you put that phraseology in context with what had been going on with the Republican Party since the end of the Civil Rights Movement, from the Southern strategy of Nixon to the campaign of Reagan, all of that racialized imagery, all of that talking to what they coined at that time, the real America, there is a purpose. There's a plan to that. And I'm saying that Donald Trump benefited from all that. He took all of that and he utilized that to win the election. And again, when you look at Palin, and I looked at Palin and McCain, think about what was going on. Did you see that last town hall debate with Senator McCain? When his last town hall discussion he had, that he wasn't even debating. He was talking to the supporters in Virginia, my favorite Confederate state, and he's talking to them. All right. And this old lady comes up to Senator McCain. This is when you can look on his face and see he knew he lost the election at that point. Then he realized he hitched his trailer to the wrong pony, because this old lady comes up, an old white lady, and he's talking about what he's trying to do. And she says, "Oh, I really hope you win, because if Obama wins, well, he's a Muslim and he's all this stuff." And you can see the look on his face like, "Oh my God, I've just lost his life." And he grabs the microphone and says, "No, ma'am. He's a good man. He's a senator I work with. We just have a difference of opinion. We're both good guys. We're both Americans. He's not the enemy. We're not the enemy. You're not the enemy because you're liberal." When he says this, and at that point, you see a lot, and all of that was being said the whole time. The whole time that they were running against Obama. All right. So when you set up that dichotomy, all right, and then you start aiming all this vitriolic language, this guy's a Muslim, he's not really an American, all this crap, there is racial connotation there. And unfortunately, race is a thread that runs through our country's history, and that has not changed. Whether we like it or not, that's the reality of the situation.
Could I ask a clarifying question? I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstood. Are you saying that there are people behind Trump intentionally asking him to use this language?
Well, I don't know what his inner circle is doing. I know what was it, Steve O'Bannon was the last guy. I'm quite sure he was telling Trump exactly what to say. All right. Anybody who's running for president, running for any office, is going to have people behind you that are going to be writing speeches for you, or they're going to take your personality. They know who you are, and if they let you spitball, they'll let you spitball. Reagan had it. Obama had it. Everybody has it. This is, if you once you become a politician, that's what you have. That's what you have a press secretary for. That's what you have a chief of staff for. Steve O'Bannon was his right hand man, Mr. Alt Right himself. All right, and they know what triggers people. It would be intellectually dishonest for us to say that people with millions of dollars and millions of dollars being funded to them aren't using that money effectively to craft their message, and that the people that they're hiring, they're not hiring Bob from Bob's janitorial service to do this. They are hiring people who know how to do this, who've been doing this, and it is their career to fashion messages, to incite emotions, to manipulate people to go to the side you want them to go. The left and the right both do it. It's not just Trump. Everybody does it. If I gave you a list of phrases that I think are crazy on the left, I think you'd agree with it because right now you don't like them. All right. I'm a Republican. There's a lot of things the left has branded that I know exactly what they were trying to do with the branding of a language. Like, take, for example, this defund the police. I know exactly what they're doing with that branding. Go ahead.
You've thrown a lot out. I definitely want to give Justin, because that's a lot to unpack. So Justin, please.
Go ahead.
So let me address the first in totality. I've worked in and with a lot of marketing companies, especially my time at the casino. And let me tell you something: just because you throw a lot of money and there's people that are quote unquote smart running marketing campaigns doesn't make them good. I went to a conference just a year ago, and one of the gentlemen there was basically the founder of the entire Apple marketing platform that has been rolled out over the last 10 years, which we can all agree is very successful. But one of the things he talked about was $1 million misses. Well, people who crafted messages and campaigns and advertising for businesses, look at the Quiznos. Go look at a Quiznos ad that basically single-handedly took down Quiznos subs. Millions of dollars and commercial time. Super Bowl ads were taken out of this crazy little demon-looking rat thing that was terrible, and it was and it sang a crazy song and then sang Quiznos subs at the end. Just because several people are fired, at many companies, billion-dollar companies, million-dollar ad organizations over bad misses, bad slogans that take on a life of their own and then sort of gain some momentum. So I agree with you that some are crafted on purpose and some are perpetuated on purpose. I don't disagree solely with that. But to say that every single message and marketing slogan is crafted so meticulously and carefully to mean things that are underneath that is a stretch that could get you across the Atlantic.
Well, all you said is that sometimes they get it wrong. That's all you said. You haven't. See, here's the thing. You are not. I'm talking to intent. The intent is the same. If they mess it up, I'm not saying they're always going to get it right. You can have it's like in the music business. You can make the best song in the world and it's a flop. And you can make the worst song in the world and it becomes a hit. It all depends. But every song you make, you're trying to make sure every song a record company releases, they're trying to release a hit record. Do they always win? No, but most of the time they do. That's why they make.
And most of the time they don't. I mean, making a hit record is a lightning strike. Getting on the Billboard chart is a lightning strike.
Let me explain how the music business works. I've been part of that.
You're going to explain to me how the music business works.
I'm going to explain to you because
this isn't a music debate. This is the Donald Trump debate.
All right. When a company like Time Warner decides that they're going to release an artist, when the A&R department gets together, that isn't an accident. When they pick who they're going to forward, it's not an accident. And even when that person is losing, for example, Destiny's Child, first record came out, flopped. All right. Nobody heard of it. They took that same record, went and got Wyclef, remixed it, created another marketing campaign, pressed the issue, suppressed other artists, other female artists they had to make sure that their investment panned out. So understand, sometimes they'll get it wrong. Prince had a couple of flops. That can happen. But for the most part, when someone decides to put large amounts of money behind you as a product, they're trying to win, and most of the time they do. Will they win every time? No. Now in politics, you're looking at this ad campaign as if this is one ad campaign outside of anything else. We're talking about a series of a series of political ads, phrases, and ideologies being pushed since the end of the civil rights movement by the Republican Party. So this is not like one. It's not like one campaign. The ideas are there. They know what they're
Are you
doing.
are you inherently saying, like, since the civil rights movement, the Republican Party has been inherently racist?
Yes, absolutely.
And how
But
are you a Republican at all?
I think both parties are inherently racist. I think the Democratic Party is inherently racist as well. All right. So as an African American, most of the systems and institutions I deal with in this country are inherently racist. I can't avoid that. That's the history of this country. All right. And let me be clear, not inherently racist, inherently white supremacist, is because most of the systems and institutions that serve our country were created in a history of white superiority and black inferiority as a social and political reality. Now, that's how it was created, be it the economic system, be it the criminal justice system, be it the political system. So the political system is one thing, but the institutions that serve the political system in this country are the Republican and Democratic parties. And they both have inherently some white supremacist ideas in there. They manifest differently. And again, as I said before, this is they're all burning crosses in people's yard. It is the end of the civil rights movement happens. All right. The Republican Party, this is when people want to say that the parties didn't flip, the Democrats and the Republican Party didn't flip. Well, it was over about 20 years of time. At the end of the civil rights movement, the Democratic Party made the tactical error, in my opinion, of going in the identity politics way and abandoning working class people, particularly white working class voters. That's what they did. They made that strategic error. The Republican Party picked up on that. That's when Richard Nixon and his administration went towards what we call now the Southern strategy. And through Nixon, through Reagan, ultimately ended up working. And that's how the parties ended up flipping the way they did. That being said, that was on purpose. You think Nixon and them just decided arbitrarily? They looked at the writing on the wall, they saw the mistakes the Democrats were making, and they made a point to run with it. And it paid off. It paid off with Reagan, and we had two Bushes, and now we have Trump. It paid off. And all I'm saying, when the Democrats elected, when Obama got elected, it did cause some problems, racial problems. It would be dishonest to say, are you going to sit here with a straight face and tell me that you don't think Obama being elected president didn't strike some racial chords in a lot of people in the United States of America? Are you going to tell me that that's not the reality of the situation?
I'm not going to say that, like, people who certainly have racist views didn't come out and do things to that when Obama was elected. I mean, I personally was happy that happened, and I think most of America was. I mean, Obama's approval ratings, prior to swearing in, were through the roof through most of America. So systematically, I would say no. But are there factions who let their racist color show? Of course, those are the same people who are still defending the Confederate flag, for God's sakes. Like, you know what I mean? Like that. I think I agree that whole notion is ridiculous.
But you do realize that that's a strong part of the base of the Republican Party.
That's I disagree with you. I would disagree.
You disagree with that.
I would
disagree that a strong part of the Republican Party, all right, Southern Republicans particularly, all right.
Now you're saying Southern Republicans, okay?
Right?
But the North has a vastly large population.
Let's clarify that, Richard. So, are you speaking to all the Republican Party, or are you speaking to the Southern Republican Party?
Well, as far as the having a basis of people that are pro-Confederate, I would say that's pretty much most of the Southern Republican Party. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything to make me.
I would like to see some numbers on this, but I disagree.
Well, why? If you disagree, then answer this then. In the southern states, all right, all right, put it this way. If it were not so, Trump would not cater to that particular demographic. If they weren't a significant portion of the demographic of the Republican Party, Trump would not cater to them. You think they weigh it out. They weigh it out. All right, what do I got to gain? What do I got to lose? This is a net negative. If I go for hard supporting the right of Confederate monuments and Confederate flag flying, will I lose more votes than I gain? And they say, I believe we're going to gain more than we lose.
But
Someday he takes
listen,
the
you're calling out. It's why a lot of presidents and campaigns, like, you know, they referred to it for a long time as the Bible Belt, and that has nothing to do with race. It had all to do with like those people's values in those areas and placating to get those people on their side, whether it be evangelical Christians. You could say, I love how this goes, because like every 4 years we talk about the same things in the way that like we try to dissect each part and say, well, this is the largest part of their base, this is the largest part of their base, when that's not relatively true. Like there's certain parts of campaigns that pander to all kinds of audiences. I've watched the Democrats do this for years and years and years. Like they go into the cities, and again, this is how they poke at some division in order to obtain already in the black vote, because that's what they know they can do. They do it every 4 years.
Well, I guess the difference between you and I is I agree with you. I'm a Republican for a reason. I know what the Democrats do. All right. One of the things that grates my nerves every time a Democratic candidate comes to Chicago or New York, they go to some big black church and then they start trying to quote Dr. King, and they start trying to talk in church language. They try to get that little black dialect. I find it condescending and offensive, but they do it. I guess I can admit, because I'm not a Democrat, I can point out the times Democrats do it. I'm saying the Republicans do the same thing. And you seem to have a problem when I'm saying that.
No,
the Republicans do the exact same thing.
I'm having an issue because this debate is about Trump, and we seem to be like just diluting
I'm trying to give
the
you
history into the civil rights movement.
I'm trying to give you a reason as to Trump does not exist in a vacuum. Trump does not get elected in a vacuum.
He doesn't, but
there are certain things that brought us to this place that he got elected. And I'm trying to give you
You're making an argument.
Yeah.
Richard, you're making an argument that the president is being propped up. In fact, you said that. You said that, like,
I didn't say he was propped up at all.
You were insinuating. You said specifically that Steve Bannon is feeding words to Donald Trump.
No, I didn't say that. What I said was
Someone rewind it, please.
I know what I said.
I heard you say it. I wrote it down.
I said all presidents, all politicians have people. They have press secretaries.
You said Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon was
giving the president words to say.
Yeah, he was crafting the message. There were certain words that he said. How can you unequivocally say he wasn't? See, here's what I don't get.
Because the worst job in the administration. He asked me a question, Ethan. Can I answer it?
Go ahead, answer it.
Go ahead.
So you ask a question and then you start explaining what, like, your side of it.
What I'm asking you is, what do you think?
Hold on, I'm
asking you a question. What do you think a press secretary does for a candidate? What do you think someone like Steve Bannon does for the president of the United States when he's running for president? What do you think he was doing?
Let me tell you.
So let Justin, please go ahead, Justin.
Let me tell you what the worst job in the president's administration would be. You want to know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Speechwriter. Because
I wouldn't want to be one.
Listen, exactly. Here's why. Is because this president, unlike any other president, if everyone wants to talk about like his rhetoric and his speech and all of these kinds of things, and then you want to talk and say how it's linked and being propped up or fed in a certain way, the press secretary doesn't feed the president what to say, especially this president above all presidents. You know why? This president is always riffing off the books. He's always going off the page. If I was a speechwriter, I would be backstage with my butthole clenched tight, sweating bricks, because he is going to go off the page. He is not going to say what exactly I want him to say and how I want him to say it. This is what gets him into trouble at times, but it also what paints him as very authentic to a lot of folks, because they can't get themselves around like this guy's just going to say what he's going to say. He's going to punch back when he wants to. He's going to say what he wants to. He's going to call out who he wants to call out. He's going to call them names. He's going to do all these things. I guarantee you none of that is in the freaking script. None of that is written down anywhere. And he's constantly doing that. So to say that like he is being fed these nice little like package deals that he's going to convey this message and he's the guy and this president has bought into that hook, line, and sinker. I think more than any other president that we've ever had, he is way outside of that. And that's why another reason why people voted for him and will vote for him this time around is because people don't feel like he's being bought with huge corporate money. People, and maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. I'm just telling you how people feel. But
I know how they feel.
Right. People feel like that, but also people feel like this president isn't being fed a line by anybody that he's calling to.
Okay.
That's my point.
I can understand why you would believe that. All right. I think some of the things you think that Trump is rifting are calculated things that he is going to say, and he's signifying to people when he says them. I think when he calls African countries shithole countries, he knew exactly what he was saying, and he said it on purpose. I don't think that was rifting at all because I believe he was signifying to a certain group of people when he said it. So you are giving him the you're giving him the I guess the benefit of the doubt is if he's freestyling this. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Now there's sometimes I'm sure that he's off script. All
I
right.
think if
And
you
I'm
can
not simply
spread it,
and let me be clear so we can get rid of the straw man. I'm not
sure.
saying that Trump has a group of people that are controlling him and feeding him lines. What I am saying is he has people around him to help him craft this message. He's a great salesman. I don't think he's a great businessman, but he's a hell of a salesman. He's always been a hell of a brander. So you think that that changed when he started running for office, that he wasn't the same guy who knew how to brand a message and to brand himself? That's all he's done. He's a great salesman. But back to Mr. Bannon, and I'm going to read this. This is his from the BBC I'm reading. Steve Bannon, American media executive, political strategist, all right, chairman of Breitbart News, served as the White House chief strategist in the administration of U.S. Presidential Donald Trump during the first 7 months of his term, all right, and served for him through the campaign. So you think somebody who's American media executive, political strategist, former investment banker, former executive chairman of Breitbart News, wouldn't help him craft the message? You think what do you think he was doing? What do you think he was there for? That's what tell me what you think he was there for if he wasn't there for all the things that he does. What was he there for? Just tell me, what was he there for?
I mean, I'm not in charge of like all.
If
I
if
wouldn't. I would
let me
list all
ask you
the
a question.
duties of
Wait, no,
the
no.
press secretary,
Let
but
her answer that. Let Justin answer before you ask
What do you
another
think
question.
what do you think he was doing?
yeah, you keep asking that.
Yeah.
So again, I
You're
don't have.
telling me he didn't do that. So you're
Richard, you
telling
gotta
me
let him. You gotta let him
I'm
answer.
saying I just want to be clear that I'm characterizing what you're saying right. You're telling me that Donald Trump is freestyling everything and that
I
he
didn't say
hires
freestyles
this guy.
everything. I said
All
he
right.
goes off the page. So
All
that's
right.
a
He goes
straw
off
man
page.
you're creating. You're saying
All
I'm
right.
saying this.
So okay. So you're not saying that. So you're saying that this strategist guy who's done this for quite some time and is very good at it. All right. Had nothing to do with how Trump formulated his message and how he pushed it forward. Is that what you're telling me? I'm asking a question. I'll be quiet.
Okay. So again, the press secretary's job, and that's and are you saying when Steve Bannon was press secretary, are you saying that like he is crafting the message that the president is giving?
Not press secretary as chief strategist. That means the chief strategist. He is a chief person coming up with strategy. All right. This is who he is. So I'm saying that's what he was hired for and that's what he did. And I'm asking you, do you believe he did that? Or do you believe
Listen,
that
a chief strategist in most campaigns is tied to executing the strategy of the candidate. To say that that's always in reverse, like it's their ideas and then they're puppeteering the president or
I
the
didn't say
president
see,
elect in some
you
way
keep saying
is
puppeting.
preposterous. That's not how it works.
Puppeting means that I don't you keep saying puppeting as if I'm
I
saying
only said puppeting
that
once.
I'm saying that Trump is running with Bannon's ideology. I'm saying Trump hired somebody he agreed with. All right. He agreed with this dude. So I'm not saying you act like that they're making him say, I'm not saying they're making him say anything he don't want to say or do anything. He hired somebody who agreed with his vision of how he wanted to do it, and he helped him execute it. And some of the language that he utilized was to Steve Bannon is a far right nationalist. Okay. So that being said, if I hire a far right nationalist, that means that's the service I want. If I hire a country western band, I want country western music. All right. I'm not going to expect them to come and play hip hop. So if I hire a far right nationalist, that means I want a far right nationalist. So that's what Trump wanted. He got what he paid for. He seems like he gets what he pays for. Fire you if you're not doing your job. He's pretty good at that. So he wanted a far right nationalist strategist, and that's who he got. He has the money to get who he wants. That's who he chose. And I believe there's a reason why he did. I'm not of the impression that President Trump is a stupid person by any means. I think a lot of what he
Well,
does is quite calculated.
that brings up my next point, though.
Mhm.
Is you're saying that like the president's a really smart person and he's calculated and all that stuff, but it also doesn't follow the left narrative then that the president is an idiot and that he's so dumb and he can't figure out and he always says the wrong thing and he's always saying dumb stuff to get himself into trouble. And you see this argument constantly by the left over the last 4 years is the president is so stupid. Like the people who are agreeing with what you're saying, even in the thread right here, it's like those are the people who are constantly saying how idiotic the president is. But yet you also want to have this argument that says he is so calculated and he's so like engulfed in this like, you know, dog whistling message that this is, and it's being executed to the nth degree, but he's such an idiot.
Hey, Justin,
Okay, well,
real quick, I think there might be we might be missing something here. So, and Richard, please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe you have said Trump is stupid or idiotic, right? Okay.
No.
So
I'm sorry. Let me clarify.
I know, but it sounds like you're conflating the argument of the left and what Richard is saying, and those are two different things.
I am. Agreed.
let
I'm
me be clear.
just getting to like one of my points in this. You know, again, why if like you're saying why I'm pro Trump or whatever, we're getting into the weeds of like the isms of all of these different issues that are compounded of like who his press secretary might be or who who was helping execute campaigns or whatever when he did it in 2016. What I'm saying is like if you go to like policies, okay, that were executed after the president became the president, there's a lot of things that were enacted that were not far right reaching agendas. And if you're saying like he was, if in a campaign you're hiring people to call out to bases to execute more votes, good, that's their job, that's what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean? Again, the left does this, like you said, the left does this every year, going to black churches, going in, and doing that thing. They hire strategists who are in that community. They hire celebrities to open up speeches for them to do the same thing. The left has been doing this for forever. You know what I'm saying? And you're talking about like Trump hiring a strategist that calls out to the right base. That's their job. Like that.
I didn't say the right base. I said the far right base. That's why they call it the alt right.
Well, I mean, if you can't get the people who are way on your side to give you their votes, then you've got problems, and you're never going to be the president. So like that. I mean, that's a simple strategy, but like, and that seems so. That doesn't seem like that calculated. That seems like you know what? If I'm going to run as a Republican, I better shore up like the people who are on the right side, no matter what distance of the right they might be on. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't mean that like you necessarily follow all of their ideology. And then when you become, this is why everyone talks about when presidents run and have all these campaign promises, then once they get into the office, what happens? Nothing, or not these like radical changes that they, again, look what President, like Obama wanted to do with all these policies and barely got any of those things done. And some of them, like even I'll give Obama credit, like the Obamacare was a bastardized, incredibly watered down version of what he really wanted. And it was a total disaster because of it. Was Obamacare in its original fashion given a real shot? No. And you know what? I thought maybe some good might come of that particular policy, and it did not. But the reason why a lot of people it's like ignored it is because Obama was beloved by a lot of folks. And the reality of the situation is all presidents call out to these far-reaching things and make campaign promises that are never going to get kept, really, because they're they're engulfing themselves in at least having the main part of the party support them, and then try to go back towards the middle closer to election time.
Okay, well, what I have to say to that is I hear what you're saying. All right. People are going to hire strategists to try to get the people that they need to vote for them to vote for them. I concur. I guess what I'm saying, one, is I'm not a leftist. I'm not a Democrat. I don't think the man is stupid. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I've said that from the jump. I said it from the first debate. He knows exactly what he's doing. I said that before Obama was out of office. And I guess the reason why I was trying to give you the history, to give you a context, this is what Trump did. There was a lot of white nationalists and just a lot of just regular garden variety racism that was going on. The Republican Party, Mitch McConnell, stopped Obama. One of the reasons why Obamacare sucked was because of the opposition it received from the Republican Party. They didn't come to the table as honest brokers and try to come up with an actual thing to help Americans when it comes to health care. All right. So what you get initially, Trump starts this. He's not an American. He's from Kenya. All this Muslim Brotherhood bullshit starts. All right. Steve Bannon's with him at this time, by the way, since we're talking about alt-right. All right. So the president is not attacking Obama on policy. He's attacking Obama on being a black person that he believes is not really an American. It's from one of those shithole countries that he's going to talk about eventually. All right. He's contextualizing this before he even announces he runs. All right. That's smart. He gets that whole birther movement rolling and rolling and rolling. He rides in into the Republican primary. He rides in on that wave. That's on purpose. That's not stupid. That's brilliant. He taps into the latent racism in this country and hatred for Obama. All that was kicked up by my party, unfortunately, throughout the time, from the time the man was elected. He's a communist, he's a Muslim, he's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no policy in that. It was one of my problems when I talk to my fellow Republicans. I'm like, okay, let's talk about policy. Why are we talking about if he was born in America? Why are we still talking about birth certificate? Why are we chasing the birth certificate 4 years later? What is this about? Good strategy. Because it got that base that they wanted to get fired up. And unfortunately, the neocons of my party, all right, the Reagan era, or I should say the Reagan Republicans, had screwed up. They had made some tactical errors in dealing with the evangelical base, the Confederate flag flying base, all those. They made some errors dealing with that. And the biggest error they made was in dealing with white working class voters. They were repeating the same mistake that the Democrats had made, ignoring that base that, as you said, they did talk to them in a language they understood. Hey, you're the real America. And unfortunately, Obama screwed up and talking about them saying, plebbles and guns. That was bad. And then Hillary came along. She did herself by calling them deplorables. That was it. All right. So again, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying that the Democrats are innocent in this. They do the same damn thing. All I'm saying is that Trump did it better. He was smarter. He hired better people that knew how to get to that base.
Yeah. Right. So we're going. So we're going back to like I'm going after like beyond sort of, again, I hear this argument a lot from people who are obviously anti-Trump, you know what I'm saying? And not necessarily you, Richard, but you're right. I am conflating things that like people are saying, because even as I was just talking about Trump being dumb, someone in the comments is like, but he is dumb. You know what I mean? So
some people believe that.
Okay. Yeah. But I want to go to what like actually happens, in again, public policy after Trump became the president. Things like the president prioritized education in the Black community. The president signed legislation that added more than $100 million for scholarships, research, and centers of excellence for the HBCU. That was more than Obama, by the way. So, no, let me just add these couple points, because we're hanging on racism specifically as like the hang up why you're anti, and I just don't find it necessarily to be true from what the president is actually doing. So Trump signed legislation creating opportunity zones. That was all, nearly 9,000 communities in all 50 states. DC, all 5 territories, designated as opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are projected to attract $100 billion in private investments in underprivileged communities. So if we think that like a lot of this is, divisiveness is caused by classism, he's addressing that in that particular one. Trump signed the First Step Act, which largely impacts minorities through major prison reform and rehabilitation. That's historic legislation, promotes prisoner participation, vocational training, educational coursework, faith-based programs.
Could you repeat that?
So the First Step Act, these reforms helped. Hold on. The First Step Act, these reforms help to remedy unfair sentencing provisions that disproportionately hurt African Americans. This also historical legislation promotes prisoner participation in vocational training, educational coursework, and or faith-based programs. These reforms help keep all Americans safe by giving former prisoners the chance to find purpose and contribute to the economy. That was taken from the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
So during the president, you talked about how the presidency started, how he got elected. Obviously, the approval rating by Black Americans was about 7% in 2016, and now it's hovering at about 18-19%. And so that leads me to, like, has Trump really, since he's been president, you're talking about speeches, you're talking about somebody he hired, you're talking about all these things, but has Trump, let me ask you this question, has Trump actually instituted any systematically racist policies since he's been the president?
Systematically racist policies?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never ever really accused him of racist policies. I've accused him of anti-worker, anti-consumer policies that affect all people, black, white, or whatever. He was instrumental in AFSCME versus Janice, which hurts workers, whether they know it or not. I think that he stacked the deck with these judges that are particularly anti-labor, anti-worker, anti-consumer. All right. So I'm not making the argument. I don't get into the race-based argument of, oh, he loves black people because he gave some HBU some money. I don't care. All right. They all do that. Every president is going to do that to some degree, various degrees. I'm sure Woodrow Wilson gave money to historically black colleges. He was a racist. It doesn't matter. That type of stuff doesn't really matter to me because most African-American students don't go to HBCU. So it doesn't affect my children that are going to college at all. So to me, those are symbolic acts, and it's just like the Democrats do stuff. You do these things that aren't really doing anything. And I work for a prison, so you can miss me with that whole prison reform stuff. I know what really goes on. That did affect a small portion of federal prisoners, but the majority of African-American males, if we're trying to deal with them, are locked up in state institutions that are struggling for funding to have the most basic of programs. He ain't done nothing about that. All right. So again, you can do these things that look
Who
a
runs the
certain
state
way.
programs?
Yeah. Oh, no. State programs get money from the federal government on a whole lot of different things. That's how it works. The federal government subsidizes education in many states as well. So
it's subsidized, but it's not largely driven.
Like
it's like you're talking. That's like blaming the president for poor schools. And it's
let me ask you this question. You just mentioned the fact that the president gave money to HBCUs, private black schools. And I just told you most African-American students don't go there. So the president he put Betty DeVos in a position that she could have done something for all the black students most of the black students in University of Illinois, University of Indiana, all the public schools, all the public universities. She's done nothing but made it much harder for them to be able to operate. So again, you give me this, okay, that's nice and symbolic. All right, the president leads the country. I'm not saying he's responsible for every state budget in the country at all, but I am saying that he is responsible for setting certain policy standards and saying, okay, this is what we want to do by pushing the Congress to deal with the states that the representatives come from, and by even pushing the governors by working positively with governors. I haven't seen him work too positively with any governor unless they agree with him hook, line, and sinker, like with this whole COVID crisis. But we'll talk about that later. Sure. All right. So I'm just saying that, okay, you mentioned these policies that are supposed to be towards African Americans, and that 18%, I like to know where that statistic came from, that 18% of African American voters are supporting Trump.
I have it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find it. That's from the New York Times. That's a black voter poll at the New York Times.
Is that an opinion survey or is that an actual journalist writing?
I mean, the New York Times is not exactly.
Doesn't matter. No. The New York Times will print stuff from people who are conservative as they will when it's an opinion piece.
It was written by Thomas B. Edsall, who is a weekly contributor to the.
And you say Trump's approval rating amongst African Americans is 18%?
Yes. And from 7, it was showing about 18.
Approval rating with African American?
Yeah. There's actually a huge disparity between men and women, actually, but it's actually more men than women. But both categories have gone up, but they have largely gone up amongst black males.
Well, I can believe that. That I have seen.
So,
Hold on a second. I'm looking at the opinion piece you got here.
Sure.
All right.
So
Trump's approval.
So the point that I'm going to make quick while you're reading is that this is again maybe not your specific argument, so I'm not gonna pin it on you, but I want to have this in the conversation. Is that this tends to be the conversation that people want to have about facts and policies and things like that. So people want to throw things out like the president isn't doing enough or the president doesn't do anything and whatever. And then when I do bring up these bills, it's the typical like, well, these don't mean anything, or this doesn't mean that, like, and then they kind of brush that off and they want to go back to the sort of more of the ideological argument or the back to the rhetorics or the lines that they want to use or take out of context or however they want to use it and to pin this up. So but you can't have it both ways. It's saying the president never does anything. The president's not doing anything, or and then when he does a bill, you go, well, that doesn't mean anything. That's like a hard argument for the general public to swallow, especially people who are in the center who are like, well, you know what? Like when someone says he never does anything, and then someone says, well, he did do this, and then they go, it's like that cuts both ways. You can't have it both ways. At least to the voting general populace.
So I do want to real quick. Now I would like to get to Richard Graves. One reason why he is opposed to Trump.
Oh, my primary reason being opposed to the president is I believe he's divided America unnecessarily. So I don't think there's any policy that he's presented or that he's put through that cancels that.
15 minutes talking about that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just simply saying. I don't think any policy you just presented offsets that to me, because I don't see anything significant in what you said in regard to policy. I see a lot of signifying. And as an African American, I know when politicians are signifying to my demographic, that's why I'm not a Democrat. All right. So just because he's signifying in a larger way, that doesn't impress me. All right. You're saying you gave $100 million to HBCUs that were already struggling. I get that. That's great. But I'm also saying most African American students don't go to HBCU. So how is that affecting most African Americans? So you gave me a list of policies that you said, and I listened to them. I don't see how that is. For example, with the prison reform thing, you can Google this. However, one of the policy things that he reversed of Obama said there could be no more private prisons in the federal system. Trump reversed that. Now, nothing he did offsets that, in my opinion, because that is a significant problem in the criminal justice system, the fact of privatized prisons. There should not be a profit motive in locking people up. And the statistics have shown that the private prisons don't save the taxpayers any money. It just, less money goes to the officers for their pay, less money goes towards the offenders for program, and more money goes to shareholders. They don't save money. So now that's what I'm saying. That's a real policy thing. That's not helping the numbers of mass incarceration. So you could say that he came up with this program to, work with faith-based and volunteers and all that stuff. That's great. But you are allowing prisons to be privatized and for a profit margin to be there. And that is a net negative. I don't think that the policy you gave offsets that. It just doesn't seem that way to me. All right, especially since the incarceration numbers have not gone down. All right, they are consistent. They're moving. So that means, in my opinion, it's great to help the prisoners when it comes to certain things. But at the end of the day, we need to have policy that creates less people going to prison. So that is what. Tell me, as a Trump supporter, what has he done that has significantly changed America from the moment he got into the moment now, except for the fact that people hate each other more?
I don't think that people hate each other more.
Okay.
Here's why. Because this is cyclical. If you think that this didn't happen under Obama, you're wrong. Well,
I told you it started then.
Right.
I told you it started before.
To say that this president is more divisive than any other or the last is absolutely unequivocally dishonest. Because the Black Lives Matter movement didn't start under Trump. It wasn't worse, and somehow, why did it escalate so much that it caught so much steam? With, I read the numbers of unarmed black man shootings by white cops last, and you were, arguing with me about what the word is, and it like my point to that, the statistic is.
Let's be clear. Let me answer that. Let me be clear. I asked you. No, because you brought up, you said something that it basically trying to say I was being dishonest. Let me be clear. I told you specifically a statistic outside of any credible context is meaningless. That wasn't debating is. That was saying that what I was saying was what you were presenting was intellectually dishonest.
No, that's
and
not.
What I was saying is to say that less black men were shot unarmed says nothing. What were they doing? I told you. I worked in law enforcement.
I didn't say less. I said on average it's about the same. It's a little less now. So my point I went back and looked at all statistics of all the scenarios: unarmed, armed, police killings in general, against any race for that matter. It's pretty much the same. Here's the problem with today is social media is louder than ever. You have live streams like Ethan's and everybody else where people can have opinions and put out these things. Moreover, we can do live streaming right from your phone in the middle of a downtown thing, and we can see it all live. Nobody's hating anybody else worse than they ever have before. It is about the same. And if you look at tragic and incidences that would claim such, if you look at the last 8 years, it's about the same. So it's to say that this president somehow is more divisive and is calling people to arms to raise up for racial division is just dishonest. That's not true. That's not statistically true. I'm a stats person. Show me the stats. Show me the stats, and I will believe you. When you're conflating what the president says and slogans that come up with dog whistling to white nationalists who wants to enrage the base against African American or people of color, I just don't see it. I see it as I'm a public figure in some ways. My band, my podcast, all those types of things. You want to take clips out of what I say, and somebody who is listen, I have people who follow. I'm in a country band. There's crazy people who follow my music and stuff. That doesn't mean I think like they do, or they might take things that I say and put it on a t-shirt. That doesn't make me them. You know what I'm saying? And to say that all the time, I think is a far stretch and that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow.
I think it's a tough pill for a lot of white people to swallow, because the fact is that there is a certain cultural, societal white supremacy that white people all believe, and black people all believe the same way. See, here's the thing. You keep acting like I'm talking about cops killing innocent black men as the metric about which I'm saying that there is more animosity and hatred. I think that Trump is allowing people who have these goofy racial ideas to be louder, to be more proud, to be less afraid of society not accepting their racism. Let me be clear what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about burning crosses, my friend. Look, white supremacy is cultural in American society. White people and black people all buy into it. It's the product that's been sold for the last 40 years. That product is there. That mentality is there. To varying degrees, black people and white people have these thoughts when it comes to race. All right, as far as whites feeling superior and blacks feeling inferior, blacks feeling that whites are inferior, whites feeling that blacks are inferior. This is something that's part of the national psyche. All right, and it's just usually in pleasant company, people don't say or act in certain ways. I think this whole thing with the Confederacy and these statues and flags represents what I am talking about. Because the whole thing with Colin Kaepernick represents what I'm talking about. And these are things, and like I said, you say the Black Lives Matter movement started on Obama. And I'm telling you, this stuff all started after the Civil Rights Movement. So that includes that period of time. I said Trump is the culmination of all this. I didn't say he caused all this. Culmination. He's the point we are at right now. And I believe he utilized that with his handlers, like Mr. O'Bannon. He tapped into that in order to win an election, and he did.
You could say it's Al Gore's fault. You know why? Because he started the internet, right? So like, if Al Gore created the internet, then like the internet gave all these freaking people a voice. You know what I mean?
And they had a voice before that. We had a civil war that had race without internet, my friend.
Listen, and I agree, but I'm saying systematically I don't think there's anything systematically that exists right now that is inherently racist anymore. Like
Really?
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, show me the policies, show me the laws that are systematically racist in their intent, and I will agree.
Well, it's more than laws. I said systems and institutions. So let's take the financial system. All right. You can Google all this. All right. When it comes to the 2008 financial crisis and crash, one of the things that was found, lawsuits that were paid out and settled by Chase Bank, by Washington Mutual Bank, by Wells Fargo, what they did was they did predatory lending directed towards the African American community, where you and I can both have a 700 credit score and go in for the same type of loan for the same amount of money with the same income, the same debt to income ratio, all factors the same, and somehow I'm walking out with B and C paper and you're walking out with A paper. This actually happened. This is stuff that's documented. That's the system of finance and how it's been stacked against African Americans.
Those are financial institutions who
No, but financial institutions are governed by federal law, and one of the problems with the financial
no, they
institutions
most certainly
no,
aren't.
all right,
They have
you do know that
Time out.
you do know.
One at a time, please.
All right, you do know. You've heard of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, right?
Yes.
You have heard of the Federal Reserve Bank, right? All right,
Yeah,
you have heard of the
Federal
Glass.
Reserve is not part of the
You have
government.
heard of the Glass-Steagall Act, right? You have heard of the CRA Act. These are federal acts governing banking. So within those acts,
They're regulating banking to our private industries.
Regulating, but those industries, the financial services, if it's private or not,
They go
it
through
is part of
regulation
American
all the time.
Or what's that? What did you say about
like between certain presidencies and policies, even every 2 years, they go through banking goes through regulation and deregulation all the time.
Not all the time. All right, the major banking regulation that has happened under Franklin Roosevelt, and that was after the Great Depression, and that was systematically being dismantled between that point and the Reagan administration by both Republican and Democratic presidents and administrations to create the situations where the greed of these private organizations ended up almost tanking the economy again, like it did during the Great Depression. My point is this: when I say system institution, it's not just government. All right. Government is in bed with private organizations or private industry in all kinds of different facets, be it the energy industry, be it the banking industry. All right. So what I'm saying is, when we say systems and institutions, we're not just talking about the government as an institution or a system. The government is a tool. The system is the system. And the banks in the financial services industry, the banks run the financial services industry, and the racism is there. You said there was no systemic racism. I just gave you an example of systemic racism done by private corporations within the context.
No, that's not the system. No, the government system and private industries are not the same.
We're not talking about the government system. I
am. That's what I said. It was systematically racist.
We're talking about systems.
You brought up financial institutions.
That's not the right. Well, I guess you don't have the right definition of systemic and institutional racism. All right.
So
systemic and institutional. There are systems created in every society to serve a society. Politics and government is one system. Finance is a system. All right. Education is a system. The criminal justice system is a system. These are the systems. Listen to what I'm saying.
You're throwing a lot in the same pile.
I'm giving you an example of symptoms. You
Richard,
can't say
time out. Richard, I'm going to let you explain it, and then Justin, after he's done, I would like you to counterpoint it. Okay.
Okay. You're trying to limit this to the system of government, and that is intellectually fraudulent, and that is academically lazy. That is a definition. There's a definition you're throwing up. It's not just about government. Government is not the only tool that serves our society. Systems and institutions that serve society. The banking system, Chase Bank was started by Aaron Burr. All right. So let's not act like banking is so separate from governmental systems. We know that they run hand in hand, and we know that the regulation that the banking or the energy industry gets is by rent seeking. They go out and they lobby to get legislation that works what's best for them. Now it's what's best for you and I. That's been going on. That's going to continue to go on. All I'm saying is, you asked me to give you an example of a system. All right. The system is the economic system. The institutions are the banks. I don't care if they're private or public. They are the institutions that serve our country. We don't have public banks that serve the citizens of this country. And they're allowed to operate. When they were redlining in the 40s and 50s, they were allowed to operate by rent-seeking regulation for them to get away with what they did. And all I'm saying is they did the same thing back in 2008. This ain't ancient history. So, and it was one of the things that almost helped tank the damn economy. But what I'm saying is, these are the systems and institutions. You said there are none that are inherently racist. They all are. They all were. All the systems and institutions of this country were made with the presupposition of blacks being not human, not citizens, not equal. And that didn't end in 1865. That didn't end at the end of the Civil War. That ended on paper 50 years ago. I'm 50. So that means I'm the children that ended on paper 50 years ago.
Let's give Justin a chance to respond, please.
Private industries have regulations and regulations in fact, most of the regulations of how a lot of private industries are run actually come from the Democratic Party. So
oh, good grief.
Richard.
I'm sorry.
Please let Justin finish.
Go ahead.
So the conversation, if we've been on for an hour and 10 minutes, and primarily this conversation has been like not about Trump or anything. It's been about like race relations in America. And again, if the point is going to be ignored, that again, any statistic or anything that I cite that points to maybe it's not as much of a problem as it certainly used to be, and somehow this president, like you said, is culminating this, then I'm sticking to the topic at hand, being Trump. You want to talk about the financial regulations and whether it was regulated or deregulated. When again, it's when banks deregulate and run wild, things happen, and it was part of the crash. I didn't think the government should bail them out. Just like other capitalistic businesses, you survive or thrive. That's the way that it works in America, in my opinion. So when I was saying systematically, you took what my question was and you drug it to where you wanted to. You want to talk about all the financial system and this system, again, when an individual company or an institution, Google, like for instance, or Facebook, or one of these one of these companies want to do something or what, or want to.
It was the whole banking industry, man. Will you quit with this bullshit?
All right. We gotta stop.
And I'm just saying,
Richard. I know this is a frustrating topic, but we are here to show people that
this ain't even about Trump at this point. You're being dishonest. You're talking about
Richard. That's gotta stop.
You're talking about one bank.
No insults.
I'm talking about the banking industry. This wasn't you talking about the largest banks in the country. All right. You're talking about rent-seeking regulation. You don't see how. I guess what you're trying to minimize this, all right? And I'm like, you asked for a system, and I gave you
I said economically, and you knew what I meant by government system, and then you took it to like the financial industry. Now you want to debate the financial.
Here's what I think what's happening here.
Conversation where you want to take it, and then you want to debate what you know. Like
no, what I want you to do is you have to acknowledge you didn't know what I was talking about.
I'm going to
try to explain it to you. You don't want to accept the reality of what it is we're talking about,
guys. Okay,
I'm taking it back to the topic at hand,
guys. We are clearly at this point. It's no longer productive. We are both talking past each other, and that's the last thing I want on this show. Now, you both have your opinions, and I respect that, but the goal of my show is not to have people yelling at each other or be disrespectful to each other. So at this point, I am going to end this because I don't like the direction it's headed, and it is not a representation of the channel I want to be a part of. So I do appreciate both of your time. I appreciate you engaging in this, but this is where I'm going to end it. Everyone, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Obviously, we know things like this get heated. I do my best to keep everything under control. If you can, like and subscribe, and do your best to, when you talk to other people, it can be frustrating, but engage respectfully with each other. These are the conversations that we need to have with each other. We're not going to get anywhere by yelling at each other or hurling insults at each other. We have to find common ground. Otherwise, we're just sitting here on opposite sides throwing rocks at each other. So everyone, thank you. And I hope you have a good day.